This is a brief introduction to Christological astronomy. So you're already aware from your previous education that the sun is in the center and the planets go around the sun and the moon goes around the earth. The planets in order are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and then there's an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and then there's Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then today Pluto is no longer considered to be a planet. It's a planetoid, if I remember correctly. The Earth goes around the sun in 365 days plus, and the moon goes around the Earth in 28 days. Then there are 12 Mazaroth is the Hebrew term for them. The astrology uses the term zodiac signs. As I've pointed out before, astrology is evil. It's error. Christological astronomy is God-given revelation. And so when you look up at the sky at night, some of those planets will be up there and they'll be in a line, and the moon will be in the same line with the planets pretty much. You won't see all the planets up there any given night, except for some rare times that they're all lined up. Some of those planets are visible to the naked eye, and some are not. The ones that are visible to the naked eye are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Neptune and Uranus or Uranus, I forget how to pronounce it, is not visible to the naked eye, but can be seen by telescopes and were discovered in the 1900s sometime. So they were not part of the revelation that was given to the original Melchizedeks, but we know where they are today, and they do have a Christological meaning. The sun goes through the sky on what's called the ecliptic. It's just a line. And the sun is in a particular Mazaroth sign. There are 12 of them. At any given time, the sun is in one of those Mazaroth signs. And the planets are also in each of them in one of those Mazaroth signs. Though some of the planets are visible at night and some are up there during the day, but we still know where they are. Just can't see them because the sun is so much brighter than the planets. You can see Venus, for example, just before sunrise and just after sunset. It's the bright morning star. So you can see that with your naked eye, but at night you can pick out Jupiter and Saturn fairly easily. If somebody points them out to you, they're going to be very bright, some of the brightest things up there. The Mazaroths are made up of, they are a constellation. Constellation is made up of stars that are not physically next to each other, but to our appearance, they're next to each other. And the stars in a constellation have a appearance to them, which may be obvious. So for example, Orion, you've got 2 shoulders, 2 hips, three stars that make up a belt, and then some stars that make up a sword. It's very clearly a man. Anybody looking at it would say, oh, that's a man. But some of the other ones of Mazaroth signs, what they actually are what God says they are, is not immediately apparent until you're told. Some of them are very bright and very visible. Some are fairly faint, and you wouldn't pick them out without help. The symbol for each of the Mazaroth sign is something that God gave. And the zodiac signs are not God-given, and in some cases are completely different from what the Mazarov signs, symbols are that God gave. But researchers were able to recover, because the zodiac signs is what we have had for quite a long time. Researchers were able to recover the original Mazarov signs, the symbols, from looking back through history and researching back through many different civilizations and finding out that many civilizations had similar names for these things. But more importantly, the stars that make up each of the Mazarov signs, the stars that make up the constellation, each star has names, and those star names have been retained through history. And the names of the stars correspond to the Mazarov sign symbol name. So once you know the names of the stars, then the name of the Mazarov symbol makes sense. The modern names for the planets come from Greek and Roman mythology, the names for their gods, but each of them has an original name in Hebrew, no surprise, right? That has meaning. And the sun and the moon also have Hebrew names, and the original names of the stars are Hebrew, though they also have names in Arabic and other ancient languages. But the names in Arabic and other ancient languages, in many cases, are the same as the Hebrew name. The Hebrew name was the original. By the way, the Melchizedeks spoke Hebrew. No surprise, right? Or maybe it is a surprise. Shouldn't be. And Hebrew was lost as a language for quite a while and restored. Abraham actually found the Hebrew records of his ancestors and relearned Hebrew. And then in our today, of course, there's been a modern day restoration of Hebrew in the modern nation state of Israel. But anyway, the Hebrew names for the stars, sun, moon, planets, all have meanings that are known. And the known meanings of the planets that make up a constellation or make up a Mazarov sign correspond, the names of the stars correspond to the name of the Mazarov sign. Each of the planets has a name, and the name has meaning, and what constellation that planet is in has meaning. At all times, those planets are up there circling around the sun, and the part on the dark side of the earth, the night side, are visible to us, and so are the stars. On the day side of the planet are not visible to us, with some exceptions. I mean, the moon's visible, and like I said, Venus is visible. Excuse me. But we know where they are by computer programs. And so at the time of your birth, or let's go back, the time of Avram's birth, the astrologers at that time, the Magi, knew exactly where the planets were at the time of his birth, and they were able to interpret his birth sky. And surprise, surprise, I mean, they were doing it. King Nimrod at the time had his astrologers doing this probably as a present to his good servant, was Abraham's father, who was a pagan believer in astrology and also a worshiper of the false gods. But it was being done as a present for a valued general servant. But surprise, surprise, the interpretation of the Abraham's birth sky was that he was going to be the guy to put Nimrod out. It actually ended up being either Isaac or Jacob who did it, but Abraham's birth sky revealed Avram, his name Avram became Abraham. Birth sky revealed that he was going to be a real big threat to Nimrod. And so at that point, Nimrod ordered his death. And Avram's father hit him. But anyway, the meaning, interpretation of Avram's birth sky was known to all the inner circle of the king. And it was clear to them. Same thing with Yeshua. I mean, the Magi arrived and they had read, interpreted, they knew what the birth sky was, and they interpreted it. And they gave that interpretation or part of it to King Herod. Where is he who's born king of the Jews? And King Herod basically said, well, you find out, let me know, because I want to worship him, but in parenthesis, I'm going to kill him, which, by the way, was what Pharaoh tried to do to Moses at a later time in Moses's life, but is what Nimrod had tried to do to Avram. So Yeshua wasn't the first baby that was known to be a king by his birth sky and sought out to be killed by the current kings of the earth because he was a threat. Actually, Avram was the first one that had that kind of a birth sky. And the second one that had a king trying to kill him was Moses, but he was an adult at the time. And the third one was Yeshua, and he was a baby at the time. So actually, Yeshua's birth sky and Abraham's birth sky had exactly the same initial result. The ones that were able to read that birth sky told the king, and the current king attempted to kill both of them because their birth sky revealed that they were bad news to the current king. And having given this brief introduction, your birth sky reveals elements, the essential elements of your destiny, not all of it. I mean, you got your destiny scroll to interact with to get this information from in detail, but your birth sky is something that you're meant to have revealed to you and you're meant to know. In fact, I would go so far to say your parents were meant to know. And you were meant to be raised up by parents that knew what your destiny was and were raising you in a way that prepared you for your destiny, because they knew the essential elements of your destiny as revealed in your birth sky. This is what is meant to happen. For you, you're probably hearing about this at a much later point in your life, and you may be like me with gray hair by the time you are given your birth sky, what it was, and an interpretation of it. For those of us who are older, the interpretation of your birth sky parts of it will be new to you, but much of it will be no surprise because you've already lived much of it. Depending on how much of your destiny you've actually lived out, your birth sky may be no surprise at all. But in most cases, some of it is still hidden from you until you are given the interpretation of your birth sky, and then it's revealed. At which point it accelerates your journey into your destiny. Now, your birth sky reveals your destiny up to a certain point. And after that, there is further destiny, but it's not revealed in your birth sky. I picture this like in American English, we call training wheels on a bicycle when you're learning how to ride your bike, or in England, it's called stabilizers on your bicycle. This is like stabilizers for your destiny. It's the first part, the most essential part, the part you really need to know to get going in the right direction. and is available to you today, being told what your birth sky was, and then having that interpreted to you. You then apply that and are accelerated into your destiny. Once you get to the end of what's revealed in your birth sky, there is further destiny to move into, which we can talk about another time. But I've given you some basic information here to work with as to what this is all about. And I'll end it for now. This is enough at one point. You may need to listen to this more than once. And in future recordings, I will go into more detail, further detail. I should add that your birth sky gives you basic information, but having a prophet who understands birth skies and understands your birth sky, and then is given additional revelation as a prophet about your birth sky, is part of the original intent. Abram, is the first mention in scripture of a prophet. All of these Melchizedeks were first a prophet, then a king, then a Melchizedek. Actually, they were the prophet, the king, the Melchizedek, and then the Son of God. This is revealed, much of this is revealed in Hebrews. But the fact that prophet's the beginning of that is revealed because Noah was a prophet, and so was Enoch a prophet, and Avram was first mention of prophet in scripture. So prophet from the beginning, from original revelation, is associated with Melchizedek's. Since that time, it hasn't always been so. But Yeshua was the prophet of his time, the Christ or king of his time, the Melchizedek of his time, and the Son of God of his time. Don't trigger on that. There'll be more teaching on that later. Just if that bothers you, park it for now. But anyway, my point is that additional prophetic revelation of your destiny by someone functioning as a prophet who also knows what your birth sky was and also knows how to interpret your birth sky with the basic fundamental scientific training that was given to the Melchizedeks, gives you additional revelation beyond what the simple knowing of your birth sky, what it was, and the interpretation of it, initial interpretation of it was. Prophecy on top of that gives you more fine-tuned revelation of your destiny based upon your birth sky. And we'll end this for now.